Liz. So welcome. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I want to just acknowledge that you are at the forefront of what we are learning about Alzheimer's. And this is such an exciting time as more and more research is out there, including the recent trial that we published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. So if you haven't seen that yet, feel free to put a comment in the chat, let us know where you are. And if you want us to email you, add your email address there and we will send you an email with the PDF of the research paper. And Tyler is here to joining us. And Tyler, if you want to throw a copy of that PDF or the link to it in the chat, that would be great too. It's just a really, really exciting time. And my goal, the reason that I'm here is to share what is possible for those suffering with Alzheimer's. There is so much that we can do. It's almost overwhelming. And still, people are told by well-meaning providers that there's nothing that can be done if someone is starting to experience cognitive decline, that Alzheimer's is inevitable. I want to challenge that. I want you to challenge that. And I want you to feel like you have the tools to put this Bredesen protocol to work. So that's what we're going to dive into tonight. I can see there's already several hundred people here joining us, which is amazing and so exciting. And I want to take care of a couple housekeeping things as more people are joining us. Replays will absolutely be available because you're here. You got a link in your email. Because you registered for this webinar, you will get another email within the next 24 hours that will have a replay link. So if you need to step away, if you don't get everything, if I'm talking too fast, which I've been accused of, you will get a link so that you can watch it all over again. It's completely free. You can share the link. You can use it at your discretion. And then we're going to have some time after the presentation for some Q&A. I'm going to get to as many questions as possible. Start putting them in the Q&A as soon as you want, because I will just start at the top of those. So if you have any questions that are burning right now, add them to the Q&A. I'll get through this presentation about brain optimizing activities, and then I will jump into the Q&A and get you all the answers that you came looking for. So my goal is to get you the support that you need to implement the Bredesen protocol. It can feel complex, it can feel overwhelming, even to someone with full cognitive capacity, let alone somebody who's starting to struggle with cognitive challenges. But I believe that Alzheimer's is optional for the vast majority of people out there. And all we need to do is start this work at the earliest stages of the disease process, and we could be preventing many, many, many of the Alzheimer's cases out there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people already suffering, and I'm not suggesting this was their fault. This is all very new science. We are just learning. We are on the cutting edge of understanding what helps our neuronal health, what helps every cell in our bodies, but especially in our brain. And so I'm here to explain a big part of that. We're not going to cover everything tonight, but we'll cover a piece. And last week we talked about, we're talking about keto next week. We talked about, what did we talk about last week? I need to check my memory. I know we're talking about caregiving. We often talk about environment. Oh, we talked about detox, of course, one of my favorite subjects. So we talked about detox last week. That replay is available if you want the link to that. Again, that should be in your email, but you can always reach out and ask for that. Happy to share. And so we're putting together some of these puzzle pieces between detox, environment, caregiving approaches, and then the ketogenic diet, and tonight the exercises. And then in our coaching programs, we have even more of that. Through the medical support, you can get even more of that. And then if you're looking for that residential experience, that fully immersive experience, we offer it stays at Marama. So we're going to share more about that. But my goal, my life's work, is to make the Bredesen protocol accessible to people, because I have watched it work. And what keeps it from working is the inability to implement it. So we want to give you as much support as possible so that you can get the maximum benefit. Most people can reverse cognitive decline. Almost everyone can prevent cognitive decline. It takes work. You've got to put the plan into action, but we're here to help you and give you a step-by-step guide so that you can get this done at home. So I'm a naturopathic doctor. I graduated from Bastyr. I then was trained by Dr. Bredesen in 2017, and I was the clinical investigator on the research paper that I just was discussing. We started that in 2018, 2019. I saw that my patients were getting better, but so many people had the question, if I do this, if I spend the money, if I take the time to do this Bredesen protocol, how likely is it that my loved one will get better? And what we saw was that people with MoCA scores, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about MoCA scores in a minute. People with MoCA scores, measurable cognitive impairment on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, with MoCA scores in the middle range with measurable decline that was affecting their lives, 73.9% of the time, they got improvement within 6 months. I want everybody to have access to this. So because I was seeing this, I also wanted to have a place where people could go to get the full experience of the Bredesen protocol without having to figure out how to do it at home. And so that was why I created Marama around the same time that we started the clinical trial, because I saw the people that weren't getting better just weren't able to implement it at home. So I was a caregiver at Marama. When we took over Marama, it was a hospice facility, and I had the privilege of watching over the people who were in hospice and supporting them through that last transition of life. Really meaningful. And I've also had the privilege of supporting people with Alzheimer's directly there and also in my clinical practice. So that is why Dr. Bredesen has been so supportive of me. He got to come to our open house. Really wonderful to have him there. This was right before COVID. We snuck in a party in late February before everybody knew it was a big deal and celebrated this brand new type of senior living facility. And we think of it as memory recovery, not memory care. What our goal is to get people back their memory, not just watch their demise. You also may have heard of me from the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit. This was just an absolute privilege to put together with really, really, really incredible colleagues in the field. It's so fun to do, and I hope that you got as much out of it as I did. So why do I do this? Really, it's because of my patients. Linda was my first patient in 2017, and she came to me with her husband, and she was wearing this bright pink dress, and she had this leather studded bag, and you could tell her husband just adored her. And she could barely answer a question with yes or no. You could see her wheels. She had forgotten the question. So we tested her MoCA, and her MoCA, again, it's this one-page worksheet that is done in a clinical setting, and it gives us a number for cognition. And so a perfect score is 30. Anything 26 and above is normal. But when you start dropping down further and further, you have more and more severe cognitive decline. More and more severe Alzheimer's, and she certainly had Alzheimer's. She had a MoCA score of 2. This reflects that inability to answer with more than yes or no. She didn't know how to draw a clock. She didn't know how to copy a box. She didn't know the date or time or where she was. She couldn't do any math or name any of the zoo animals. And just 7 weeks into treatment, we saw this, 6 weeks into treatment, her MoCA score went from a 2 to a 7. This was a miraculous change. Most people don't experience this. A neurologist would think we had done something wrong. In fact, I thought we'd done something wrong. At this point, I was a bit of a skeptic. I had been told that there was nothing you could do for Alzheimer's. And so he was so committed. So what did they do? They moved out of a moldy bedroom, and they actually just moved into their living room. They got on an organic ketogenic diet. They started ballroom dancing 3 nights a week. They got on all the supplements. She got her dental work done and her mouth cleaned out. She got on bioidentical hormone replacement. They started doing a lot of the activities that we're going to talk about today in terms of brain engagement and creativity. She loved clothes, and she got back into sewing and kind of dressing herself. They basically made a game out of her going through her closet and getting dressed in the morning. And this helps to inspire independence. And it was also something that was really fun for her, which is super important when it comes to cognitive engagement. So you can see here on the left was her original MoCA worksheet, and that box is really small. It's in the corner. And although she can draw a circle, she didn't put any numbers on it, and she certainly wasn't putting any hands on it. Now, the one on the right is just 6 weeks later. It's not perfect, but you can certainly see that there's an improvement. And both myself and her husband also could experience the improvement. She was able to string a sentence together. She was bickering with her husband about something that had happened on the way into the office. And this was just phenomenal to see. But what I thought was, if this is possible for Linda, somebody so far progressed in this disease process, what's possible for everybody else? If they haven't even started to experience symptoms yet, could we prevent that? If they're earlier on, could we reverse it? And sure enough, what we've seen is that the answer is by and large, yes, a resounding yes. So Linda is my inspiration. It's these phenomenal, amazing, hardworking, dedicated patients who come into my office and prove to me what's possible, that get me to get out of bed and come here and offer these the coaching and the clinical care and create places like Marama, because I get the privilege of seeing people get better. I get to see walking miracles in my life. And that is one of the most fulfilling things I ever could have imagined. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it later, but essentially what we've been doing last week, we had a lot of people asking, after our talk about detox, I was sharing about the Clear Mind Center in the Marama Cousin over in Kansas, in Wichita, Kansas. And so many people reached out and said, what if I can't go to Kansas? Or what if we're not ready to go to Kansas? And so I want to let everyone know that there is a course with live coaching, a Facebook group, and this is available. And so what you get from this is accountability. We're starting on July 31st. And then again in early August. You'll get accountability, you will get accessibility to me, you'll get inspiration from the group, and you'll get that community holding you accountable, inspiring you, cheerleading, and you'll get the support. And so I want everyone to know that this is available, and we'll give a few more details about this a little bit later. But let's get into the activities that we want to think about. So if you are considering the optimal day for your brain, these are some things that I want to get your juices flowing and your wheels turning in your mind, because this is sort of, if you think of it like a checkbox, how can I maximize the meaningful connection that I'm getting in my life? How can I maximize my connection with nature or my time outside? That might mean a walk in the woods or a walk at the beach if that's accessible. It might just be natural light, maybe getting outside in your yard. What about physical activity? Can I get my heart rate up? Can I maybe do some physical activity and have some meaningful connection with someone I love or someone I care about? Brain stimulation. How can I get that cognitive engagement? And hey, can I do these at the same time? We're going to talk about why that's important to start stacking these things on top of each other. And then creativity. We're going to brainstorm together in the chat. So if you already have ideas about things that check multiple boxes here, please throw them in the chat so that we can all inspire each other. I have some great ideas for you too, but I want to know what would be meaningful and fun and engaging for you. So go ahead and throw those in the chat, and let's all brainstorm together. This is an example of what we do at Marama and the Clear Mind Center. So essentially, in orange is our breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, but in white are our activities throughout the day. So we start with a walk, we do a meditation after that, we do the daily chronicles, which is cognitive engagement. This is something like, in July 17th of 1984, there was some historical event that happened. And often this will trigger a conversation of like, my parents' anniversary was July 14th. I remember every year they would take us to dinner with them instead of just having their own celebration. And these little things, these events from childhood, or these events, meaningful events from their life, come up, and people get to share that. The residents at Marama connect with each other by sharing these important life events that are facilitated through this daily chronicles. They also write in their own handwriting about the day, about their memories. And sometimes writing in your own handwriting will help you remember something even better. And then it also jogs your memory if you go back to read it, and it gives it some credibility that, I was actually there. Creative arts, things like gardening, sculpting, painting, handwork. We will also do holiday-themed creative events. We might also have animals come, or music therapy. These are just some ideas, and we'll get into more on the next slide, even to again get your juices flowing and your creative wheels spinning, so that you can think of some exercises and activities to do at home to get the maximum benefit out of the Bredesen protocol. We also, of course, have the activity of movement. So we do the walk in the morning, and then more vigorous movement in the casita, doing the exercise therapy circuit in the afternoon after a light snack, but before dinner. After dinner is another really, really important time to consider. Now, some people are just pooped, right? At the end of the day, you just want to kick back, relax, and maybe zone out and watch TV. And I would encourage you to reconsider that. This is an awesome opportunity to connect with people you love, to check some of these boxes. Maybe it means going for a walk, especially in these longer summer days. Maybe it means playing a board game or getting creative, maybe listening to music in the evenings after dinner. It's often just sort of a reflex or a habit to turn the TV on, but this is a phenomenal time to wind down, get that connection, and get in one more brain healthy activity before retiring for bed. Really important to have that gap between your last meal and bedtime. So Dr. Bredesen recommends a 3-hour gap before that last bite of food, between that last bite of food and when you lay your head down on the pillow, so that you sleep better, you get higher quality sleep, and your body's not distracted by digestion. It can really focus on that lymphatic rinsing of the brain at night and really high quality sleep. So just in terms of setting up the calendar of your day, thinking through how we can fit all of these pieces in, I want to give you a starting point for what we do at Marama. Of course, be gentle with yourself because we have full-time staff that facilitate all of this. But cooking is also a very creative activity. So keep that in mind when you're considering how to sort out your days and organize your days. So activities. I want to go through and again, just continue this conversation around what helps to support cognitive health. And again, having fun, being relaxed. These are things, and maybe you have children or you've watched this with a care partner, that the more we're engaged, the better it is for our cognition, our mood, and the more relaxed we are, the easier it is to engage. And so what we want to do are things that are, again, fun, exciting. Usually if there can be an element of surprise or humor, it's not a no pain, no gain situation. I think sometimes of people sitting down at the computer to do some, brain game that they've been told by someone online that it's going to help their cognition. And I would say, rather than sitting you in front of the computer, I want you to look at this list, maybe choose from this list. Sometimes I think of it like deciding what to make for dinner is the hardest part of the decision. The process is that decision making that takes so much energy. And once you've decided, it's easy. So tonight, while we're on this call, make a decision. What are you or your care partner going to add in terms of activities? Put it in the chat, commit to it. What's going to be the most fun, exciting, maybe humorous for you to incorporate into your life? So here, let's list out some ideas. Music. So music is a really fun one because this is phenomenal for anyone at any spectrum of the cognitive decline continuum. So if you are maybe concerned because you're related to somebody who's had Alzheimer's or is suffering currently with Alzheimer's, you have the genetics that might predispose you to Alzheimer's, but you don't have any symptoms yet. If you're musically inclined, maybe pick up a new instrument. Maybe pick up an old instrument that you haven't played for a long time and play a new song or learn a new song. Maybe start taking lessons and up-level your ability, your skills playing that instrument. If you're a little further, on that spectrum, if you're starting to notice cognitive decline or your MoCA score, if you're familiar with that, is maybe in the low 20s, it's registering as measurable cognitive decline. Maybe go back to an old instrument that you played as a child, whether a piano or a guitar, and play a familiar song, play something that you've known before and get good at it again. If you're even further down the cognitive decline spectrum, maybe it's more about listening to music or singing along. An amazing thing I've seen at Marama is that we'll have residents there who know every single word to Jingle Bells. Like, it is just wild. Like, your brain can't get rid of it if it tried. And so there are these songs from childhood, nursery rhymes even, where many people will know them even when they're far progressed with dementia. But if your MoCA score is maybe around the teens or maybe around 10, a little higher than that, sing-alongs like To the Sound of Music, maybe to Elvis, whatever your favorite song or genre is, singing along to those songs is a really fun way to get that cognitive engagement and use music to inspire maybe movement even. Start checking those boxes, doing multiple things at once. Crafts is the next one. So crafts, this might be like knitting or sewing. But also, when I wrote crafts, I also kind of was thinking even bigger than that, So writing your memoir, this is a creative pursuit, and on the spectrum, again, this continuum, it might be that if you're very early on in terms of cognitive decline, or you haven't started experiencing any symptoms, this might be a 3 to 6 month project of literally writing out the story of your life. And that would be a very creative and engaging endeavor. If you're on this extreme end, it might be getting together. It might mean getting together with a cousin or a good friend that you've known for a long time, and maybe reminiscing a little bit together about things you both remember, or even being told a story by someone who shared that experience with you. Maybe being read letters from loved ones, or looking through pictures of earlier on in your life. And if you're in the middle somewhere, it might be getting a grandchild to help you write out that memoir. Or, of course, crafting. Crafting is always fun. It's anything from maybe building an ornate birdhouse from scratch, or doing something like rolling up a pine cone in peanut butter and birdseed and hanging it outside to watch the birds snack on that. So there's a bunch of ideas here, and I hope that you are generating some more, and I'd love to hear what they are. Please add them to the chat so that we can all learn and be inspired from them. Food is another one. I mentioned this, that food is a very creative endeavor. There's lots of senses involved. Of course, there's lots of memories if you're making family recipes. If you're going into ketosis, like we'll talk about next week, there's a huge opportunity to get very creative and learn a lot of new things. So think through that. Spiritual endeavors, it might be a Bible study, it might be a new meditation, it could be any number of things. It could be just going to church or going to a service can be very engaging. And so thinking through what that's like, how much you enjoy it, how much you get from it. But again, it often will check that social box as well as the cognitive engagement box. And then games. Some favorites at Marama are bananagrams and Uno. Things like chess and Scrabble are also fun. And if somebody is more severely declined, just having them at the table and included in the game, even if they're not the one playing, can be very stimulating and engaging for them and a lot of fun. Oftentimes we'll see that people who aren't able to play, they still have a big smile on their face. They're still celebrating when someone wins. They're very engaged, even though they're not able to play. And so I encourage you to not rule this out if someone can't participate the way that maybe they used to. And then thinking through outings, places that you can go that are stimulating and exciting. Again, that element of surprise, that we all want some certainty in life. We want that predictability, particularly people with cognitive decline. But if there's a regular cadence of outings to different places, this kind of gives us both that predictability, but that element of fun and surprise and new. So I hope that that has stimulated some conversation and some ideas for you at home. Kirtan Kriya, I want to share this because this is a really, really well-researched type of meditation that's extremely cost-effective because it's totally free, and it's only 12 minutes. So what you see here is on the bigger screen here is from YouTube. This is just a YouTube link that, Tyler, if you would put that in the chat, that'd be super helpful. So this is Kirtan Kriya meditation. Then on the left, what you see is everyone at Marama minutes. And we highly recommend that the caregivers stop what they're doing. There's always dishes to unload from the dishwasher. There's always laundry that needs to be folded. But doing this meditation and doing it together, everyone benefits from. It changes the mood in the room. And caregivers are burdened often. There's a lot to do, and it takes an extreme amount of emotional energy to care for someone with dementia. So taking this break is very recharging, and it really relaxes everyone and helps everybody get into that parasympathetic state. So we typically do this after the walk in the morning. And what we've seen from the literature is that it's shown to improve sleep, decrease depression, reduce anxiety, downregulate inflammation, upregulate immune function, improve insulin and glucose regulation, and support basically longevity through telomerase, which is the end caps of our genetic information at the cellular level. These are phenomenal results. Like if we could put this in a pill, we would see the reduction in chronic disease, globally. All it takes is 12 minutes to get the benefit of something like this. Now, if you're concerned that this doesn't jive with your religious practice, that's okay. Do a prayer practice instead. Do a Bible reading, do some sort of scripture reading. Maybe 5 things that you're grateful for. Create a gratitude practice. Or maybe it's a random act of kindness that you want to commit to every day. Find some other way to feel grounded and connected and centered, and help your nervous system get into that rest, digest, and heal state and out of the fight, flight, freeze state. That's the goal with meditation, and that's why we see so many of those physiologic benefits. All right, exercise. So exercise also has incredible research behind it in terms of cognitive function. So this, if you're leaving exercise on the table, if you're not getting enough movement, then it's time. Today is the day to commit, because primary analysis, I'm going to read to you a little bit of the research about how important exercise is. Physical exercise basically enhances your cognitive function through multiple mechanisms. And there are certain types of physical exercise that are even better than others. So I'm going to list out 4. Aerobic, many of you are familiar with. This is getting your heart rate up. This is getting your heart rate into that moderate or vigorous range for about 150 to 200 minutes per week. You want to do it regularly. Just doing it once doesn't help. We have to condition ourselves. And then strength training. This is literally, it's building muscle. We know now that our muscles, they are hormonal organs that are sending signals to our brain that support neurogenesis and synaptogenesis. That's the production of new neurons and the production of the connections between those neurons. So really important to get plenty of physical exercise. And you want to get strength training so that you have bigger muscles, so you get more of those signals to the brain. A different type of exercise that maybe some of you haven't heard of is dual task. This is the combination of physical and mental exercise at the same time. And what it does is it potentiates these cognitive benefits that we get. And so this is this research that I want to share with you. What we see is that there is a small to medium positive effect of this combined cognitive physical intervention on global cognitive function in older adults with either mild cognitive impairment at that earlier stage or with full-blown dementia. So you get a small to medium positive effect on cognition. This is better than any medication on the market. All the medications that have been in the papers recently, Leqembi or lecanemab, Aduhelm or aducanumab, they slow the rate of progression. They slow the rate of decline. So you get bad less quickly. What exercise is doing, particularly dual task exercise, is increasing your cognitive ability. You are getting actual positive results. Even though they're small to medium, these are still positive results. And in addition, it was equally beneficial in patients with mild cognitive impairment and full-blown dementia, which a lot of those medications, they are only being studied in the early stages. And then in addition, the analysis showed moderate to large positive effect. That's a really big deal in research terms. Moderate to large positive effect in activities of daily living. And this, if any of you are joining us or caregivers out there, activities of daily living is where the rubber meets the road, right? You know that this is dignity versus not having it, right? This is the ability to cook for yourself, dress yourself, clean up after yourself, use the bathroom on your own. If we could get a moderate to large positive effect from exercise so that we can maintain our dignity, who doesn't want that? And guess what? There's a small to medium positive effect for mood. Also, who wouldn't want that? So we get improvements in cognition, improvements in mood, and improvements in activities of daily living, all through combining cognitive and physical exercise at the same time. So I want you to brainstorm right now what this might look like for you. We talked a little bit about brain engaging activities. We had that whole list of ideas. Is there any way that you could see combining something that cognitively engages you with something that physically engages you? So I'm going to go into the chat and I want to see what everybody is looking at. Learning a new dance. I love this idea. This is part of the reason that ballroom dancing is so beneficial. I love, love, love that idea. right? It's physical, it's social, you're getting your heart rate up. There is so much happening at once. There's the music. This is a brilliant idea. I love Tai Chi as well. Qigong, Tai Chi, pickleball. These are fantastic ideas. Aquafit and water aerobics or Zumba. Whenever you have to pay attention to the cues of the instructor, you are often getting that cognitive engagement. Now, I just want to remind everyone that often great, thank you, Singe, you put in Pilates. So I've been going to the same Pilates class for 5 years. I totally check out. When she's saying something, I already know I'm a step ahead of her. I know exactly what she's going to say. For some people, that's going to be enough cognitive stimulation, especially if you're going to a new class. But if you are checking out, if you know you're checking out, it's time to level up. You want to be on that edge. You want to be right on that tightrope of not giving up because it's too challenging, but getting enough stimulation that you're not checking out either physically or mentally. I know Ashok is ready for our 4th type of exercise, and I can't wait to share it with you. But dual task is so important. Okay, contrast O2. So this, if you want more information, Tyler, if you would put the LiveO2 site in the chat, that would be great. LiveO2 or contrast oxygen therapy or EWOT, exercising with oxygen therapy. This is the idea that you deliver extra oxygen and you go back and forth between positive oxygen at about 80%. This is concentrated oxygen. Remember, we breathe 20% oxygen day to day. So when you're exercising, while you're working, you go back and forth between 80% and 8%. And that contrast oxygen therapy and workout, basically, through multiple mechanisms, you get an improved delivery of oxygen and other nutrients. You get vasodilation and you get improved basically circulation. And you also get this hormetic effect where you're stressing the system and you get more resilience. You get more resilient cells, you get more, over time, you get more density of the mitochondria in your cells. You also trigger senescent cells to be recycled. So you get rid of kind of those cells that are on the edge of functional. It stresses them enough that they go, and then that sends signals to create new cells. So contrast oxygen therapy, which you can learn more about through LiveO2, is a great resource. Exercise at the Clear Mind Center or at Marama looks something like this. We've got rowers and meditation, but also yoga, chair yoga, and then walking as a community is always fun. I also wanted to, this is dual task. This is our brainstorming. You guys had great brainstorms. LiveO2, this is more about the LiveO2. So this is how this is what it looks like. So you can see here, this is the reservoir that gets up to 80% oxygen in it. And you can also do it with just exercising with oxygen, or you can flip back and forth between that 20%. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I was explaining all this and here it is on the slides. So you go back and forth, air is at 20%, you go back and forth between 80% and then the negative O2 that's at 8%. This is the idea of that hormetic effect where you're strengthening the system by stressing it. Now, we're not talking about suffocation. We're not reducing the oxygen so much that you decompensate. What we're doing is we're stressing it enough, you're sprinting on negative oxygen, and then you're recovering on positive. And in that, you get the vasodilatory effects that lead to increased tissue perfusion. And then you get changes in the microvasculature. So through the pressure changes, basically there's essentially changes in how much oxygen, blood, nutrient delivery you get, but also how much is coming out through the venous system. So you're pushing more fluid through the vasculature. You get this hormetic effect that we were describing. You get the cell signaling effect to increase mitochondrial production in the daughter cells and the next generation of cells. And then you also get that retiring of the senescent cells. So exercise. In the chat right now, I want you to either take out a pen and paper or put this in the chat, commit to everyone who's here. We've got hundreds of people here for you to commit to. And one at a time, answer these questions. What type of exercise are you willing to commit to doing? And I saw people put pickleball and yoga and Pilates and a lot of these great ideas, even ping pong. There were so many great ideas about what's available at the senior center. Riding a bicycle while doing a puzzle. Hopefully it's not, it's a stationary bike, right? We don't want you to get in an accident there. Tapping out rhythms with your hands and feet. I love that. Yep. Pickleball, Tai Chi, Qigong. Yay. Oh, and Robin is saying, we love the dual task exercises at our house, a total game changer. Thanks, Robin, for cheering us all on. This is awesome. I love hearing that people are having these really positive effects. All right, Nina's going to take on weightlifting. Nina, are you going to listen to a podcast or do something to engage your brain at the same time? Same, Pamela, you're going to walk on the tread climber, and are you going to somehow engage your brain? I hope that you're feeling really inspired. Walking and counting out loud. A patient of mine, she had a granddaughter who would go for walks with her, and her granddaughter would quiz her on the important events, the anniversaries and the birthdays in their family. And I thought it was just the sweetest thing. They were both excited to go. They had a really good time together. They were both really funny. And it definitely, she was emotionally involved in the exercise, and that made it way easier and more fun to do. Okay, awesome. I love it. Everybody's signing up for exercise. Next, who's going to hold you accountable? So who are you going, maybe it's somebody in the chat or that you'll meet tonight here. Who is going to make sure that you are going to do this? Is it a friend, a partner, a spouse? Yourself? I worry about people relying on themselves. Has that worked in the past? My tennis buddy. Awesome. I love that. Okay, good. I'm glad it's worked for you, Patrice. That's awesome. So setting alarms, scheduling it. I have to schedule my exercise. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. Sometimes doing it early in the morning, just doing it before you start the rest of your day is a way to get it in. But scheduling it, having somebody to show up for, maybe even paying for it ahead of time, that helps me. My husband, my mom, yay, I'm so glad. A moment of gratitude for all of these people who are willing to hold us accountable, right? My spouse won't do it, so I'll find someone else. All right, maybe a friend. And then this is what we started talking about just now, adding it to your calendar. I know that I won't get it done unless I schedule it. So right now, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Go put it on your calendar. When are you going? Is it tomorrow? Is it Monday? What do you need to do to get rid of something else in your schedule? Maybe something that you don't need. Is there some time that you can find in the next week or so to make this happen? First thing in the morning. That's what I have to do, Patrice. Otherwise, it just does not happen. It's already there. Good work, Richard. I'm so glad you're on it. And there's a reminder on your phone. That's fantastic. I love it. Does it work? We love the why. Thank you, Janice, for mentioning that. Senior centers and the why. Great. Okay. I hope it's on everybody's calendar. And then what's next? What's your next action item? Some ideas are, maybe it's calling or signing up for a yoga retreat. Maybe it's calling the senior center to see what's on the availability list. Maybe it's calling the why or looking at their website. Is there something that you can do, an action item? Maybe you want to post your commitment on social media. What are you going to do silver sneakers classes are fantastic. I couldn't agree more, Judy. What are you going to do to tell the world that you're committing to this? When you do that, when you share this goal with other people, it doubles the likelihood that you will actually execute on it. So if you've ever struggled to make exercise a regular habit, take advantage of this moment and commit. I love that Aura Ring holds me accountable too. Tells me when I need to get up and move. It's fantastic. Okay. Good. Oh yeah, Anna, good point. Like it gets hot. And so mornings or evenings are a great time to do that. The dog gets you out. That's so good. Thanks you guys for sharing. All right. So I did want to just share that there was someone who I was chatting with in December of 2019, and they really wanted to move into Marama, but it just was not going to be feasible for them. And so when the pandemic hit, they started doing Live O2 at home. And a few months later, I got this phenomenal email that said, in the midst of this pandemic, we have some great news about my husband's condition. This woman had called me and she was desperate. She had an autoimmune condition that meant that she was relatively disabled and very dependent on her husband. And in that, his cognitive decline was terrifying for her because they did not have children they could rely on. There was no family. Would end up homeless, or, God forbid, something terrible would happen. And so she was desperate to get his cognition up. And she asked me if I could do one thing to improve his cognition, what would it be? And I said, you've got to give me two: ketosis and the Live O2 machine. Well, they never got into ketosis, but they did get the Live O2 machine and they started doing contrast oxygen therapy. And she wrote me again a few months later and said, in the midst of this pandemic, we have some great news about my husband's condition. His intelligence had improved from 75th to the 84th percentile. His memory went from the 78th to the 85th percentile, so both up about 10 points. His people skills went from the 86th to the 94th percentile, again up about 10 points. And navigation went from 87th to 96th percentile. So across the board, in 4 categories, 10 percentile points of difference in just a few months, with the only change being the Live O2. Wow, this was really incredible and so inspiring that this can be done at home. And Carol has a great question. Is this similar to hyperbaric oxygen therapy? Hyperbarics are very passive. So you're getting pressure of oxygen, pushing more oxygen into the system. However, and usually it's concentrated oxygen that you're breathing. However, oxygen game. Now, I will tell you, I was talking to the owner of Live O2, this guy, Mark Squibb, who's a total character and a love. He basically described doing a 20-minute session of Live O2 as a I think that's probably an overstatement by an enthusiastic CEO. However, I think that it rings true for me. I have seen that you get a lot more benefit. Again, it's what you put into it, you get out of it, right? You're working a lot harder. Hyperbarics is very passive. The other issue with hyperbarics is that people's ears, they need to be able to communicate that their ears are, that the pressure is changing. And so that's another thing to keep in mind. But hyperbarics is great. I just think that Live O2 is more valuable even than the hyperbarics. Okay, so I want to share with you a little bit more details about the coaching program that we are offering. You will get instant, it's at maramathome.com. But there's 11 of them. So we just discussed a little bit about exercise and a little bit about activities. So you'll take deep dives. And this is an online program that you'll get instant access to that we typically sell for $497. You'll have a money back guarantee. So I want everybody to be able to get the results of the Bredesen protocol that I have watched so many people get. I want you to have access to that. And I want to give you the support. What we've seen over and over again is that people can get better, but they don't have the ability to implement. And so that's what we want to get you. You get 12 weeks of live coaching with me. We're starting July 31st. And right now we have a $100 discount for the first 25 registrants for the July class, or August. Actually, we have a July and August class open. If one doesn't work for you, I don't mind. I never want you to sit in confusion again. I want you to know that you're doing everything you can for your brain health. And so right now we're going to do an additional one-on-one coaching session with a health coach, plus you get a one-on-one coaching session with me. So we'll do 12 live coaching sessions with me. These are an hour. Sometimes they go an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. We answer all of your questions individually and then also as a group, because so many people learn from the other people's questions, right? I hear that over and over again. I didn't know I had that question until so-and-so asked, but that was so clarifying. We're going to share recipes and new research, tips and tricks that you can use at home and get the support of the community. There's a private Facebook group that we're active in, sharing recipes, again, recipes, research. And sometimes, you're thinking about something in the middle of the night and you want to ask a question or get some support from somebody who understands you. You can just pop that into the Facebook group and you'll get an answer. And then there's a one-on-one kickoff call with Tyler. And this is to make sure that we are meeting your individual needs. Every family I talk to has a particular set of circumstances, and we want to make sure that we are getting your transformation happening, right? There's always these hurdles and these obstacles that people run into as they are trying to implement the Bredesen protocol. And so a lot of people can't just move into Marama or the Clear Mind Center. We don't always have space, but what we want to be able to do, I would love to put places, memory care facilities out of business, keep everyone at home amongst the people who love them, keep them engaged in work. So the faster we can get you implementing these tips and tricks and this protocol at home, the more likely I am to reach my goal of making memory care obsolete. So you'll get that one-on-one call with me so we can personalize this program for you, and I can answer your questions, especially if there are things coming up that maybe don't seem pertinent to everybody else in the group or things that are sensitive. We'll be able to answer those questions and get you the support that you need to make sure that you can get the maximum amount out of the Bredesen protocol. And you get to join a priceless community. You will meet accountability partners and potentially soulmates and meetup partners. And you're going to be surrounded by people who are dedicated to reversing Alzheimer's the way you are, right? So many people tell me that they're in a community or their family even they're just down on this idea, saying that it's not going to work, that there's not enough research. They're hearing things that are really demoralizing and not very motivating, especially when it's a hard thing to implement. Well, you're going to be surrounded by people who have the same values that you do and who are getting results at home too. So that's the most fun part about it. So you'll get the Marama at Home course, and you'll have instant access to that. You'll get coaching with me, 12 sessions. You'll get the private Facebook group, access to that. You'll get the one-on-one coaching with me, plus the one-on-one call with Tyler, our health coach. She's helping us here tonight, with a total value of $7,297 for just $2,397 right now. That price goes up in August or when we hit 25 participants. So do that now. If you're thinking about it, there's a money back guarantee. So don't worry, there's no risk. For 30 days, you get a risk-free, try it out. I want to be sure that this is absolutely the right fit for you. So if you're someone like Denise, her mom was suffering with dementia, is still suffering with dementia, and she's an interior designer, and she helps people think about how to design their homes with aging in place in mind. And she was joining the course because not only does she want to prevent Alzheimer's for herself, not only does she want to help other people and help her mom, but she wants to help others as they think through designing a home that will facilitate a brain healing environment and doing all of these activities, having a ketogenic diet, all of these things that there's small nuanced decisions that go into designing a home and creating a place that's going to be safe for someone to grow old in. Sharon is also a nurse and educator, and she had nursed her mother through Alzheimer's disease until she passed away. And for years, she was juggling flights back and forth for work and around the country. She was jet lagged and sleep deprived and suffering because she was losing her mom in that slow goodbye that is the Alzheimer's these days. And she just wasn't herself. She was a shell of herself. And she said people, even at work she hadn't seen for a while, didn't recognize her because she had lost so much weight. Her hair had turned gray. And when she saw what Bredesen was doing and the hope out there, it completely changed her mindset. And she dove all in. She's a nurse and an educator. And she wants to not only prevent dementia for herself, she wants to recover from the stress that was caused by helping her mom and working at the same time. And she wants to make sure the nurses that she trains, that they all have the latest in the science and they have this information so they can pass it on to their patients. If you don't want your kids to go through what you've been through. So many people tell me that they are worried that their kids are going to have to go through the experience they did losing their parent very slowly. So Lisa joined this course because she went through it with her dad. And she watched her mom and dad struggle to take care of her grandmother. So it's been through 2 generations, and she's committed to having it stop with her. her kids have kids. She wants to help her grandkids. She wants to be around them. She wants to know them. And she doesn't want her children burdened with the need to take care of her, whether it's financial or the emotional and time energy that it takes to care for someone with dementia. So she's totally committed she's also ApoE 3/4, and she's totally committed to doing this. And she really appreciated getting the benefit of doing it together as a group, getting the ideas from the group, and committing to the process of taking on a little bit more each week so that she could fully incorporate the Bredesen protocol into a lifestyle that she could do for long term. This one gets me every time. There is I think of them kind of like a couple, but they're good friends. They've been good friends for I mean, their entire lives. And I just spent some time with my best friend, and I imagine growing old with her. And I want to be laughing about funny experiences that we shared in our years of medical school. And I want to be making new memories with her into our 90s and beyond. We secretly hope that our kids will get married so we can share grandchildren. But Mariana, she bought the course and joined us in the coaching because her best friend, Anna, is showing signs of decline. And she's known Anna since they were in grade school. They grew up together in Mexico City. And she watched Anna suffer as she cared for her father and then her grandmother before that, as they both went through Alzheimer's. And she doesn't want to lose her best friend to this awful disease. And she also doesn't want to see Anna's children suffer as they take care of her. And she wants another 10 or 15 years of knowing her. They're both in their late 60s, so they're young. And I know that Anna and Mariana, they deserve that time together. And I also know it's possible. So Mariana is doing the course so that she can basically see what it takes. She wants to do it first. And then she has recently proposed to Anna, like, hey, let's do this with me. I get it. I know how to do it. I know that this offers hope. And I'm just so inspired by her commitment to her friend. It's just really, really incredible to me. So what will this look like? This is the login. So you'll get access to the login. You'll go into the caregiver training, and then you will be on the coaching calls with me. And we can't wait to have you. We've had people say this is a blessing, blessing, blessing. I'm so delighted to be here. My life is already changing, having the summit plus the coaching plus the community. They're already inspired and changing their lives just a couple weeks into the course. Seeing that feedback, watching people's lives transform is just really, really incredible. Such a privilege. And I would love for you to join us. You are the inspiration. Your care and your dedication to your loved ones, your commitment to just knowing that there's a better way to deal with this awful disease, and that you're willing to, do what it takes to find the answers and implement this, your perseverance and your love and your attention. That is really, it's so inspiring to me. It's so inspiring to others. And really, there's this movement happening. We know we can do better for our elders, and we can give them better care. So I want to jump to the Q&A. And then, how is Linda today? Brenda, that's such a great question. So she got better and better and better. And then I stopped seeing them. They kind of went out and did it on their own. I think they got what they needed. And she just got better and better, which was super wonderful. But we see that at Marama as well. I have said to Dr. Bredesen at once, I said, I'm so surprised because it's been 2.5 years and our residents, they just keep getting better. And he was like, yeah, well, of course, that's a synergistic effect. You get on this kind of upward spiral. And I think they struggled financially. They were living in Northern Baja. And I think they started seeing somebody down there who wasn't quite so far of a drive. Once we got into a rhythm, they had somebody just refilling the things that were more long-term. Sometimes they still get an email on her from her husband about updates. What are some good Brita type portable water filter pitchers that get rid of the bad stuff? I've been playing around, Julie, with something called the AquaTrue filter. It definitely, there's a huge difference in taste, but it does have an RO system. So you have to add minerals back so that it's not too depleted. Is Lion's Mane helpful? If yes, which brand? And when would you suggest taking it? Typically before bed, it can be kind of calming. Lion's mane is very, very helpful. There's one, Dr. Love is his name. His brand I know is helpful and beneficial for people, but I also really love Paul Stamets. He's got the host defense mushrooms, and he's really like the mushroom guy in all of the documentaries and stuff. He's the guy setting the standard in the mushroom world. Why do dementia patients repeat what they hear? I'm sure they're trying to process whatever they just heard. And so sometimes verbalizing it helps for it to stick in your brain. That's actually, I'll bring that up when we talk about caregiving. But one of the ways, if you're caring for someone with dementia, if you are giving them options, like what do you want for breakfast? Do you want eggs or oatmeal? You want to say, if your preference is oatmeal, you want to say oatmeal last, because often they'll remember the last word that you said. So are you ready to go outside? You might hear them say outside, or like outside. They'll respond by repeating that last word. And so that's a great strategy if you have an agenda, like if you're trying to get out the door, if you're trying to do something. What are our favorite mattresses, mattress toppers, sheets, pillows, blankets? We use avocado. So avocado mattresses, mattress toppers. And then for the sheets, I love the Koyuchi, Koyuchi. They have really high-end stuff, really nice, organic, lovely stuff. So if you can stretch and do that, that's great. We do that for some of what we have at Marama. And then because we go through a lot of sheets and towels at Marama and Clear Mind Center, we get the organic sheets from Target, and they have a really nice, they get softer and softer the more you use them. Do we find hyperbaric oxygen therapy effective for maintaining or repairing brain health? So this is a really great question, Alicia. There is a study that came out of Israel that shows that hyperbarics is really helpful for cognition. The issue is that hyperbaric facility that they use, that hyperbaric chamber, was like a $5 billion chamber. Maybe it was $5 million. I don't know. It was not the typical soft chamber that you see here. This was like a big deal, hospital grade, hard chamber. They're really apples and oranges. So suggesting that you could do like 20 dives at 1.5 ATMs in a soft chamber and get the same results, it's just not true. So I worry that people, compare those and think that they're the same, and they're not. I don't see a lot of benefit with a bunch of hyperbaric dives, and they tend to be expensive. I don't want to be like super down on them, because somebody's going to be like, oh, I totally reversed my cognitive decline just getting in the hyperbaric chamber. I'm sure it's possible, but it's not part of like a structured Bredesen approach in my mind. I think it's more important to get exercise if possible. And the LiVO2, that contrast oxygen, I think is better. From Jim, here's what I do. I live in Mexico and exercise using heavy hands. While heavy handing, I listen to tapes on learning Spanish. That's awesome. Learning a new language while you're exercising, it's such a great way to do it. It'd be really awesome if you found someone you really enjoyed hanging out with who would speak Spanish to you while you're exercising together. But that's just a way to level outside too. If you could get that connection to nature, especially if you're by the beach in Mexico or in the jungle or something. Ewat, I have an oxygen machine. How do I find someone to teach me how to do it? Good question, Cliff. Have you been on YouTube and looked at Ewat videos? Because that's a great way to learn about it. Maybe even wherever you got the oxygen machine, they might have some suggestions for you. LiVO2, I know if you buy a product from them, they have coaching provided with that. But with what you have, you probably want to find somebody who understands exactly the machine you have. Have I ever heard of or tried Katsu bands? Yeah. So Katsu is kind of on the same spectrum of LiVO2, where you're restricting oxygen and you're restricting blood flow, right? So then you get that vasodilatation of circulation that then leads to this. It's like contrast anything, right? You can do contrast hydrotherapy, which is the hot and cold, usually in water. You can do the contrast oxygen, you can do calorie restriction and then feeding, right? Even intermittent fasting is kind of this idea. It's where you restrict and then you bring it back. You restrict and then you bring it back. And when you go back and forth between those things, you essentially stress the system. It's the hormetic effect. So yeah, the Katsu bands, I know Dr. Bredesen is a big fan. I haven't tried them personally, but I am familiar with them and I get why it is, it's something. I recommend like the basic adaptive contrast system. The bigger systems or the more expensive systems, they just fill faster. So if you're like a practitioner and you have I used to have one in my clinic and we didn't get the more expensive version. So we had to wait an hour for the reservoir to fill. So we just had to turn it on in advance. And some people, like most of our Alzheimer's patients, they won't go through that bag in the whole time they're on there. So, and then even you can have somebody come right after them and use more of the bag because it's still filling. So it's just how fast you need it to fill. Otherwise, just get the basic adaptive contrast one. I may have missed this, but are there lifestyle or supplement considerations that are specific to Parkinson's? Yeah, so one really inspiring book that was more specific to Parkinson's was The Brain's Way of Healing by Norman Doidge. It talks in the first chapter, there's this really great story of this guy, a gentleman in South Africa who did a movement therapy, a really slow, intentional walking therapy that allowed him to essentially be mostly symptom-free. If he stops doing the therapy, he has his Parkinson's come back. So it's his symptoms come back. So it's not like a cure, but it's a way to manage the symptoms. The other consideration in Parkinson's is the PONS. If you just Google PONS, there's a PONS system that you put in your mouth. It's a light therapy. And then also there is the toxin consideration. So when you think about, when I think about Parkinson's, I always want to look for toxins pretty quickly. If a person with Alzheimer's is taking rivastigmine and Namenda, can they also make the Bredesen protocol or do they have to come off? No, don't come off. So if you're on medications like that, stay on them. The name of the book is called The Brain's Way of Healing. He also has another book called The Brain That Heals Itself. And it is by Norman Doidge. D-O-I-D-G, Norman, I'm going to put it in the chat. D-O-I-D-G-E, The Brain's Way of Healing. A good supplement for sundowning or overstimulation is inositol. It has really good data on well, it's very relaxing, can help to kind of calm someone down. The red light, the alpha on the V light, the red light therapy, that also really helps. And then inositol prevents the proteins from misfolding. So it actually has data on keeping the amyloid plaques from clumping together. But it is also really good for relaxing and calming the system. So hopefully, Robin, that might help. And that's something to consider. It's usually, if you look at the literature that's out there, it's pretty high doses. They're gram doses of inositol. Would you kindly recommend a good probiotic brand? I really like easily inositol with an I, sorry. So if you are looking for a good probiotic that's readily available, I really like Garden of Life. Sometimes people think it's raw because it says in big letter raw at the top, but actually the brand name is Garden of Life. It's available in most health food stores. And I really like their Ultimate Care in the orange box that has about 100 billion. So typically, if you're not sensitive, you want to take about 100 billion per dose, typically with a meal. And that is clinically significant in your stomach to like kill it all off. You want it to colonize. And Garden of Life, I see good clinical benefits with that. Jill, is there a point at which help is too late? Yeah, there is. And I think the biggest consideration, I've watched miracles happen. I have seen people with severe dementia, like I shared with you, Linda. I've seen people with severe dementia get significantly better. but they don't go back to work. I haven't seen that. And so we know that caregiving is it's stressful, and it puts us at risk of being diagnosed with dementia later on, anywhere from 2.5 to 6 times the risk of somebody who isn't a caregiver. And so my concern is that someone is becoming a martyr for the cause. And if it's too stressful to do all of this, I think it's more important that we save the caregiver sometimes. So I know that those are impossible decisions. And if everybody had all the money in the world, I would say, just send them to Marama, right? Like, just send them to Marama and we'll do it for you. But it's not feasible for everyone. Would I recommend for people living on just Social Security and who don't have the money to afford many of these things, are there less expensive things that help besides exercise, diet, sleep, and stress management? Those are the foundations. So avoid toxins. Joanna, you can get so much benefit just by changing your lifestyle. That is the foundational stuff. If there is anything that you aren't doing in that category, go there because it's free. You don't have to pay anything for that. And often it's actually cheaper to eat at home, cook for yourself. And if you're eating mostly produce, this is not an expensive diet. So, and exercise is free, prioritizing sleep is free, turning off the TV is free, playing card games is next to free, it's $3, right? That's the kind of thing that I would highly, highly recommend. Does the package include the initial Bredesen lab panel workup? So what we're doing with the coaching is non-medical. Dr. Bredesen through the Apollo site has a package that does include the lab workup, and that gets you into the Recode program, and you do get the lab workup. So that might be something for you to consider, Jane. And again, that's through Apollo. How do I feel about using beta hydroxybutyrate? I think you mean, Kathy, the BHB and or MCT to increase ketones. I love it. Please come next week when we talk about ketones. I think both of those are a great idea. What about infrared versus steam sauna and also V-Light? V-Light, I'm a huge fan of. I like the Neuro Duo product. Yeah, totally different from infrared and steam sauna. So infrared and V-Light are going to be different, even though they're both types of red light therapy. And then steam sauna versus infrared, I prefer the dry saunas, which infrared usually is. I like that because then you're sweating. So the point of the sauna for me is that you sweat so that you can get the toxins out and then rinse with cool water and then replace your electrolytes. Oh, Miss Nene, thanks for this very practical approach. Oh, thank you. This is my goal, is that everybody gets a takeaway tonight. Please add that to the chat. Thank you we still have hundreds of people here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for doing this. And then tell me, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do tonight? What are you going to do this week before we talk about keto next week? What are you committed to? What are you going to take away from this? You just spent an hour and 8 minutes with me. What did you get out of it? How can I help you? I want to know, first, what did we get you? And then also, what else do you want? How else can we add value and make sure that everyone's getting, I know that the coaching program won't be right for everybody. I totally get it. But for those it is, I'm really excited to meet you, get to know you, get you this really individualized support, and then also the support of the community. But we have community right here, and there's so much to share. I wish we had all the time in the world. Yeah, so probiotics, inositol, and walking are easy to implement. Excellent. Cheryl, you're on it. And then Robin, dancing daily. I love it, love it, love it. Julie has another question. Oh, well, first, Brenda, do you think this will ever be covered by insurance? God, I hope so. It would save Medicare so much money. Like, come on. I don't know what else to do. And then does high dose B1 help dementia patients? This came up with Dr. Bredesen too. The B1 is great. Thiamine is great if you have a deficiency, but really what you want to do, I usually recommend the B vitamins together, a B complex, because the way I think of it is like they play well together. So doing one in isolation, you might have a B2 deficiency, you might have a B12 deficiency, and you're not going to get the benefit unless you have all those B vitamins. So really all of your nutrients. So I typically recommend, even if you're going to do injections, capsules, sublingual, whatever you're doing, do a B complex. And if you want to do a little bit of extra B1, that's not dangerous, but I just don't want you to overlook the other B vitamins. What is the name of the test? It's called the MOCA test. It's big M, little O, CA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And you can find that, you can just find you can just find the PDF online, but you need somebody who's trained to administer it, to do it. Sometimes if you have a background as a health coach or something like that, you can do the training. I think it's like $150 to do the training to administer the MOCA. The scoring is very specific, so you want to understand, just so you can compare apples to apples. Make sure that somebody knows how to score it and how to ask the questions and stuff. You guys, it's been such a pleasure. I'm so grateful for your time and attention. Really, you are the inspiration. I really appreciate all of your feedback and all of your questions. And I'm really looking forward to getting into ketosis with you next week. I will see you all then. Thank you so much. Good night.